I'm Ken Rockwell. Well, let's look at this awesome new studio flash I just got. For the past 20 plus years, I've been using a 30-year-old set of Novatrons I bought used from my friend Steve. They run forever, and I've never needed anything else. To add another light, I got one of the Godoxes, and I really like it. First off, it's rated at 5700 Kelvin, so it actually matches. I don't know what the Novatrons are rated, but being a xenon tube, unlike an LED, these xenon tubes don't have a problem with green-magenta shift. So long as you've got the kelvins about right, which is the blue and amber dimension of color, it looks pretty good. So it matches along with my Novatrons. I optically trigger them, so anything that goes off sets off everything else. This has every kind of triggering known to man. It's got an optical sensor here. The only gotcha is I find this optical sensor is extremely sensitive to infrared, which means if I have the halogen or tungsten lights on in my studio, just my general studio lighting is real tungsten and halogen, it may be blind to the trigger that I use, which is just a flash on my camera. So long as that's off, I find even a very low-powered flash on my camera. I can use a little toy flash set to a 30-second power level, or a full-size flash set down to like a 10/24th power level, triggers these just fine. It's super easy to use. I'm going to have a whole video on this, but essentially, it's got a regular power switch, not a thing that you have to hold for it to turn on. Because this thing is always on, you can plug all these in your walls or plugged into a master outlet strip, or just plug them into a switch controlled by a switch on your wall. So all these lights will come up exactly as you had them set before every time you turn them on. If you want optical triggering, that's this S button here. If you want to set your groups and channels, you can do that through that. Buzz is just the beeper, active or not. It has a modeling light. What's new about this one, which is the V at the end, is it has an LED modeling light. It's rated at 10 watts. It's 5700 Kelvin, so of course it's much bluer than my studio lighting here for video, which I have set to 3500 Kelvin because I find it gives me the best white balance with my iPhone 15 Pro Max with which I'm shooting this video. This here, boom. I don't know how this shows up on the iPhone. Boom. That fires that. It's got triggering 2.4 gigahertz. It's built in. It also can trigger with a wire with a 3.5 millimeter input, or this USB receptacle is for Godox's own 433 or other 2.4 gigahertz triggers. Although honestly, I don't know why you would use either of these, simply because wired sync is what we used back in like the 1950s. That means that in the 1950s, the problem was you'd always be tripping over the cord and pulling your camera on the ground, so don't use that. I don't think you need to buy any more wireless trigger functions because it's all internal to this. This is nice. This is anodized aluminum. This is also aluminum. It seems like cast aluminum. This is plastic here. This reflector, there are different versions of this. This is a standard Bowen's S mount, and I use this reflector because I use it with my umbrellas. There's a clever thing to do here. I didn't know before I got this light, but you'll see that there's a hole here which receives the shaft of the umbrella, and you slide it through this hole. Or you leave this like this with this reflector, and that's how you get your umbrellas cooking. To mount or unmount these, you need to be careful. You pull that counterclockwise, don't hit the tube. And if you buy one of these without the included reflector, you can get the reflector separately, but that's what you get. Then you get essentially a bare bulb. It's super bright. 400 watt seconds is more than enough for tabletop photography, portraits, headshots, even small groups. I find it's more than enough power. It's more than powerful enough. A beauty of this, when I say power, is that instead of having to shoot at ISO 1600 at like f8, by the time you put on all your umbrellas and everything with a regular camera-mounted flash, this beast, when I use 3 of these together, I'm shooting at f22 at ISO 100. And, of course, the flash sync speed, which I love, and that's with all the diffusion and umbrellas and light modifiers. And that's how I get the sharp pictures. People have always complimented me on my studio shots of the equipment, which adorn my website. Those are all shot in my studio at usually f22 at ISO 100. The low ISO gives me sharper results, cleaner results, and f22 helps me keep it all in focus. I pity the folks who shoot with continuous light in the studio. Continuous light is what we use for making these videos. You don't want to use it in the studio because it's not bright enough. These flash, actually, the instant that the flash goes off, is about 10 times brighter than full sunlight. And so you wouldn't even want that amount of continuous light in your studio. You definitely want to use strobes, not flash. And that's the key. A trade secret to how I get great results with my camera just handheld, pop, pop, pop. The instantaneous nature of the flash of light from these means I don't have to worry about stabilization or shutter speeds or even tripods, and I can shoot at f22 and get the results that I demand. That beep you can turn off. That's whenever it fully recycles. It mounts to a standard 5/8 inch light stand, and this will tighten down enough to mount to a 3/8 inch stand, which are the little dinky ones that came with my Novatrons that I still have set up in my studio. This is actually a stepped tilt control here. If you can hear the steps, you don't have to friction this down. You just tighten a little bit, and it locks in with teeth, which is a beautiful thing to do. Oddly, you can't reverse this. You can't put this on this side because this is a carriage bolt with a square. There's a square cut into this. There's no square cut into this. I think with the appropriate files, you could make it so you could flip this bolt around. But in a sense, the other great thing about this flash is it's practically free. It's about $160, give or take, depending on whether or not you get the reflector and if it's on sale or not as of the summer of 2024. And the beautiful thing is a lot of people will go out and buy camera brand flashes. I mean, buy your Canon or Nikon flashes, which are great for use on camera, but they're awful for use in the studio. And the reason why is on-camera flash are wimpy. They have much less power than this. They're not comfortable attaching umbrellas and soft boxes to them, and the way that you do that with a camera-mounted flash is really pretty shaky. Most importantly, these things are designed to be put on stands. Camera-mounted flash don't really like to be put on stands. By the time you start putting a little flash with a big umbrella on a big stand, it is not happy. Then you have to run around and charge the batteries all the time. This thing plugs in the wall. It comes with a 16-foot-long cord, which is wonderful because I don't know about you, but my outlets aren't right in the middle of my studio floor where I need them for each and every light moving them around. So thank goodness it comes with the long cord. It also came with two 8-amp fuses, which I appreciate. I have not blown fuses on these before, but I'm sure if I do, I'm going to be very happy that that's with me. What's odd is this is a high-powered unit, and it only works on 100 to 120 volts, 50 or 60 hertz. If you want to carry this between Europe or between 240-volt countries and the United States, you're going to need a different sample. It does have a fan that runs continuously. It makes about the same noise as a small refrigerator. It never seems to run any faster or slower, but it does definitely run. It sucks through these ventilation holes here, which means in your studio, more sound will be focused by this reflector in this direction and less towards the other direction. I have not found a good app. I think there is an app, but I didn't bother to install it because it just, I really don't know. I have not tried that. When I'm shooting into my umbrellas this way and the subject is that way, then I can't see this panel. So that's something worth exploring. But that's it in a nutshell. This thing costs less. You can buy a set of 3 of these, complete with umbrellas and stands and a system case, for less than you can spend for some individual shoe-mounted flash. So by all means, if you want to shoot in the studio, if you want to carry these to remote locations to shoot portraits, senior portraits, headshots, executive boardrooms, and so forth, these are the flash you need, not the little wimpy things. I've got a full review with detailed pictures and instructions at kenrockwell.com. The link is in my description. I also plan to do a video showing you the basics of how to set this up. Thanks again for watching Ken Rockwell here on kenrockwell.com and kenrockwell.tv.